Hey guys, Jordan here. Thanks for listening to this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your podcatcher and YouTube.
Hey, this is Skylar. We're also on social media. Check us out on FB, and for you normies, that means Facebook. Also X and Instagram.
And if you want to be a supporting listener, check us out on patreon.com, where you get ad-free and early episodes before they drop on the regular feed. You can also support us with Bitcoin or PayPal.
And don't forget to give us a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, let's get into the world of the shaman and ancient magic.
Oh, you think darkness is your ally? You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it.
For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, against flesh and blood, against flesh.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
But against principalities, against powers, against powers, against powers.
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality.
And against the rulers of the darkness of this age, the darkness of this age, the darkness of this age.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
And Azazel taught men to make swords, and knives, and shields, and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth, and the art of working them, and bracelets, and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. And there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways. Semyaza taught enchantments and root cuttings, Armaros the resolving of enchantments, Barakiel taught astrology, Kokabel the constellations, Ezekiel the knowledge of the clouds, Arakiel the signs of the earth, Shamsiel the signs of the sun, and Sariel the course of the moon. The Book of Enoch, Chapter 2, verses 11 to 13.
From ancient times, stories, myths, and legends have shared tales of divine beings imparting knowledge to humanity. According to Greek mythology, the Titan Prometheus steals fire from the gods, with which he bestows secret technology upon mankind. In Hebrew and Christian narratives, a serpentine entity tempts Eve in the Garden of Eden with the fruit from the tree in the midst of the garden, which was forbidden by Yahweh. The entity promised them revelation into the, quote, knowledge of good and evil, end quote, and that they would be like Yahweh once they partook. In Hindu tradition, Arjuna, a prince of the ancient Kuru kingdom, receives divine insight from the god Krishna, enabling him to win the Kurukshetra war. And again, in Egyptian lore, Thoth, the god of scribes, is credited with inventing writing and sharing knowledge of magic, mathematics, and science. The theme of humanity receiving knowledge from the gods is a recurring one across cultures, from the Sumerians to the Mesoamericans, from the medieval Scandinavians to ancient Koreans. This divine wisdom encompasses both esoteric and pragmatic knowledge, covering a broad spectrum from ethics and philosophy to science and technology, often linked to the founding of civilization. Why the ancients were so convinced that such industrial secrets originated from divine sources remains unclear. Did they genuinely believe this? Does it reflect some truth? Alternatively, could these stories simply be legends that have evolved over centuries, akin to a millennia-long game of telephone? Many anthropologists would assume the latter and reject the former, opting for a myopic materialism, wherein all supernatural claims, especially from pre-Enlightenment peoples, should be viewed with suspicion or discarded altogether. They will start with the Darwinist conclusion and work backwards, viewing cultural memes, ideological frameworks, and civilization itself as simply an extension of our own biological evolution, and therefore merits only a naturalistic and ultimately materialist explanation. Though, to give the devil his due, our record of history certainly gets fuzzier the farther back we go. But to such a degree, I would posit, makes it difficult to come to any violently strong opinions about where the ancients did in fact receive their knowledge. Certainly, it would be safe to assume much of it came from simple trial and error through a process in which successive generations adapted previously established technology or techniques to make something entirely novel. To be sure, this process happens now, and it presumably did so in our distant past, divine inspiration notwithstanding. But the question we are asking here is, was this the only way in which people of the past came up with ideas which established civilization? For some, the naturalistic explanation leaves one wanting. Firstly, because there is a genetic fallacy being committed, in that because the source is viewed as not credible for any myriad of reasons. In our case today, it's because the veracity of ancient, barely literate peoples could not be trusted, especially in claims of extraordinary events like talking serpents, parting oceans, cosmic wars in the heavens, and so on. Is it at all possible that the people of the past could have had encounters with entities or consciousnesses, if you will, who do not fit in a modernist, hopelessly materialist paradigm? Or that they witnessed events that appear to defy our current understanding of physics? One might assume that without the scientific method, Aristotle's organon, and dialectical reasoning, civilization is incapable of making technological and ethical progress. Though this might appear obvious, the question remains, how did we as a species survive hundreds of thousands of years before those concepts entered the human imagination? Mass agriculture, metallurgy, architecture, chemistry, math, and so forth all existed prior to the Greeks, Egyptians, or Indus Valley cultures. Somehow, these people were able to survive and make progress without the mental tools or breadth of written knowledge we have today. We moderns would claim they arrived at these advances simply through a long process of experimentation, but the ancients would claim otherwise. They would assert that they received divine wisdom from the gods. Should we be so quick to dismiss their claims without at the very least trying to disprove them? If in fact these claims are even falsifiable. So, going beyond ancient wisdom, which, though important, isn't really the purpose of our discussion here today. What we're trying to examine is real, tangible knowledge that would help build civilization, and the entities who communicated such knowledge, if they were in fact real. Is there any validity to these claims? I think there's kind of a materialist perspective that immediately assumes there couldn't be or there can't be. And I think there's perhaps something that needs to be revisited, especially with how human beings, how ideas enter our consciousness, and how we receive ideas, especially breakthrough ideas that like launch civilization forward. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, if that's even a possibility, or is that too much of a stretch?
Well, for me and my personality, definitely not a stretch at all. I've come to the conclusion, not whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. I've already come to that conclusion that we're just working backwards from contact with whatever entity that inspired us to give, or whatever inspired us to give us that knowledge to start on these great works, whatever they were, metallurgy, architecture,
agriculture.
I guess agriculture is probably the first one that was really figured out.
Yeah. And obviously there's always, like, in all of these ancient civilizations, there's some sort of patron deity of fertility.
Of course. Which is always the agriculture deity as well.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
And then later on, as society gets more complex, we find them, they start to divide into certain sects of those things. So there's a lot to do with agriculture, right?
Yeah.
So like
you have like a rain god and then a fertility god.
Right. But at first, what they typically find is it was one god at first. It was the god of geez, it's funny. I'm kind of, my wheels are turning a little bit as we're talking about it. But it's, if we were to figure out like what are the key things for a basic society to start. So agriculture, and then what else? Metallurgy or the working of metals, or at least,
I mean,
building.
You could build a society without metal.
You can, yeah.
There's
so building,
Stone Age,
yeah, stone,
but
and
metal. Oh man, that is like
that's the game changer.
Light year, light years ahead for your once you get metal.
So really, just as my wheels are spinning, and nobody take this. It's just me thinking, and based on a bit of what I've read. But so I would imagine that there's probably two main deities to every single ancient civilization, and then everything as they get more advanced branches out from them, almost like a family tree, right? So yeah. Anyways, that's just as they get more advanced and figure out more things about agriculture, stonework, carpentry, planning, and then once we start getting into making war and all that stuff, like, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big can of worms, obviously. And
so, sorry to interrupt you then. So, I think there would be a way that those societies would divine the way to break up as their knowledge. As they gain more knowledge, there would be a person, probably like a shaman or a prophet or a seer, that would probably start to break up those things into smaller subsets, so that, and as they would do that, they would probably, they'd be developing their religion more, or their belief system.
Yeah.
And then they would be probably in contact with different entities.
Yeah.
Or different versions of the same entity that inspired them in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no reason to believe, if we're going to go from this, I feel like we're just jumping into the deep. Is this too deep right now?
No. Let's do
okay.
it.
I feel like there's no reason we should expect any entity out there is telling us necessarily the truth about itself, at least. So it could just be one or two entities showing itself in 200 or 300 different ways to advance your religion or your culture or whatever, right?
It's sort of a shapeshifter.
Yeah,
which is actually a common motif among ancient civilizations is changelings and shapeshifters.
Yes, correct.
Where you have
it follows us through all of human society. It's crazy.
Exactly. And I'm gonna reference a few people in sort of like this whole vein of things. Like obviously there's the whole ancient aliens discussion, which I'm not a big fan of personally. Ancient astronaut theory obviously got super popularized by the History Channel.
Yeah,
but
there is something I will say, just to give them some credit, they're not completely off base. I don't think they're completely off base.
So they are noticing a certain pattern, obviously. Especially in the way that the contact with the entities, the so-called supposed entities, happens, right?
Yeah.
Which it honestly, and we'll get into this, but is a form of contact that continues right up to this day.
Yes, correct.
So I get why, I understand the logic of how they arrive at these conclusions. I think a lot of their scholarship and whatnot is pretty bad. And I think a lot of their claims have been debunked. And even with this, we're like questioning the materialist paradigm and sort of like mainstream anthropology and whatnot. It's not that I totally dismiss all of that out of hand.
Yeah,
I think there's always something to learn from that. They have learned a lot about ancient civilizations and whatnot.
I don't. To be clear, just because I'm already coming from a position where I believe that there's entities influencing humanity, that doesn't mean that every ruin they dig up or artifact they find, I don't immediately assume that that's from some precursor civilization or that there's a supernatural paradigm explanation to it. Like there's been a lot of things that have happened on this earth. Like a lot of stuff has been buried over time. So I don't jump at every single thing. What I do jump at, which is what the ancient astronaut guys are great at, is jumping at the irregularities and then claiming that as part of their kind of paradigm, I guess you would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so obviously we have guys like Zachariah Sitchin, Eric von Daniken. These are kind of the big names in the ancient astronaut theories.
Yeah.
Again, I have read some of their books just out of curiosity. I find once you get into the whole problem with that, like going down that line of thinking, is it's sort of like pareidolia. Once you see it in a couple places, you think you're seeing it everywhere.
Right.
When sometimes it's just like, that's not really exactly what, this old cuneiform tablet is actually trying to communicate, right? And there's all sorts of things lost in translation. I think it's just that
But again, there are the outliers where you're like, why are there the same carvings at Machu Picchu that there are in Egypt?
Absolutely.
Right.
I don't disagree. It's just
of the same entities, by the way. They're entity carvings, by the way. They're not just any carvings. They're not like a similar character. They are the same entities carved the world across. I was just making that clear. That's all.
But there, even with that, there could be. Probably you're a little more Mulder and I'm a little more Scully.
Probably.
But I think there could be room where things are so generic looking, it could just be happenstance.
That's fair.
Where it's just kind of a coincidence. And again, like the whole pareidolia point with guys like Daniken, and Sitchin is once they start seeing a couple data points like this, then they start seeing it everywhere, right? Then everything connects to this, and then you can create this whole apparatus that is constructed around and certain assumptions about the information that you're learning from ancient archaeology.
If we're going to talk about that for another couple seconds,
sure.
I could believe that with honest actors who aren't lying. So I'm pretty sure Zachariah Sitchin is like one of the biggest frauds.
Okay, yeah.
He did not translate anything, or if he did, he made up what he translated, and then people took the ball and ran with. So guys like Von Daniken possibly are honest actors, but they're starting from a lie.
Yeah.
So when you start from a lie as an honest actor, well, you can go anywhere with it, right? So
absolutely. So yeah,
and no, I won't back up my claim that Sitchin is a fraud. You'll just have to you can put it into the internet and you'll find why.
So I will say throughout the course of this podcast, we will make tons of claims that you guys are. Yeah. You're just gonna have to go. I'm sorry, I cannot be your research assistant. Like sourcing every,
especially when we're just having a conversation.
Yeah,
too. Like,
exactly.
There might be some points where I'll bring some
source material.
Yeah, source for myself, or I'll cite something. But yeah, disclaimer: we are not your research or your research assistants.
Yeah, exactly.
But take a note or two, and then just look into it yourself, and you'll find that at least if we're wrong, we're not lying. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I wanted to make another point on the role of shamans and prophets and seers and whatnot in society, whatever you call them. They're sort of interchangeable words. Is that before there was really a monarchy in many societies, they were ruled by these sort of mystical, magical characters like the seers.
Right.
If you look into, say, in the biblical book of Judges, all the judges were seers. They were like prophets. That's really a better way to look at them. Or
wise men.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
who had like this trope. Who had this connection to the gods, and that wasn't that in the context of the Canaanite land in which they lived. That wasn't that uncommon.
No, it
either.
makes total sense.
Yeah,
and you still might have some kind of tribal alpha as well, holding everything together. But it was really probably the seers that really gave the direction to where everything was going. Probably the tribal leader kept everything together, but it was the judge or the seer that really gave the vision for where they were going.
Yeah, but even guys like Moses, they weren't just a monarch, right?
Right.
Like they were a prophet.
Yeah, he was a theological head too as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's a fair point as well. Actually, I take back what I just said.
No, but it's just to bring up, like at this time, that distinction between like the king and the prophet hadn't been made yet, right? Like that kind of came later, where like then the kings would have seers, and they would have prophets. But often, and even if that was the case, the kings themselves often were viewed as sort of divine offspring,
right?
Or like they were half god or something like that.
Yes.
And there was always this connection to the mystical, supernatural world that connected, that they were more than just a mere human.
Right.
You know what
right,
I mean?
Right.
So, just wanted to make that.
Yep, that's a good point.
Point about.
Sorry,
that.
I rabbit trailed you there.
No, but again, the seers in ancient society, they got all this. They got this knowledge. They claim to have secret, hidden things revealed to them, and
through which process would you say they made that connection?
I mean, usually through some sort of ritual. Like if you read the Epic of Gilgamesh, there's a lot of ritual magic going on in the Epic of Gilgamesh,
which is the oldest book, I believe, or the oldest writing, the oldest story we have, or that we found at least
so far. Yeah,
so far. Yeah,
there could be more found, but I believe there are older writings. I don't know if
I'm sure there are
still, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because really, that old Sumerian text was like a fully developed language by the time it hit those tablets, right?
Right.
So we could only assume that there was even more writings before
there
that.
There would
but
have to be.
We just don't have it, right? So unfortunately.
Oh man, the stories it'd be crazy.
Yeah. But go again. There's a lot of dots we're trying to connect, and I don't want to rabbit trail too much. But just the whole idea of the ancients getting divine knowledge from again, we'll use entities in place of gods, because we don't want to get too much into a theological discussion about what is a god and what isn't.
Sure.
I think the word entities is a good way to put it, or consciousnesses, if you will, some sort of consciousness that doesn't exist in the ethereal or in the material plane, but influences the material plane and connects somehow with our conscious. We're making some of these base assumptions, and I know if you're just getting into this may be like a rapid or a massive paradigm shift. Some other people who are maybe listening to us, this is like something, maybe a premise they already accept.
Yeah, so it'll be old news for you.
Yeah, but whatever point, sort of reference point you're coming at, we are assuming that there are like forces that we cannot see, and I have a whole bunch of reasons why I think that, but too much to go into in this episode.
Yeah.
But we do see a thread of like divine knowledge from some sort of being given to humanity going all the way up to modern day. And we are going to do episodes on those examples as well. But a great book actually to read is Passport to Magonia by Jacques Vallée.
Yeah,
if anyone,
that's a great one.
Yeah, if anyone is familiar with Jacques Vallée's work. And I found, I don't know, I think that book was written in the 70s or 80s or something. But I did recently read it, and it really is, I like his sort of approach to the UFO phenomenon. But he's not just talking about the UFO phenomena, he's also talking about fairy religions and stuff, especially in Europe and the British Isles. And he sort of like Eric von Daniken makes like a similar sort of connection. Hey, there's this like there's a lot of these similarities between the UFO phenomena and many of the fae stories that came from the medieval times all the way up to, the 18th, 19th, even early 20th century. And he sort of makes all of those connections. And but the premise, he doesn't make any strong conclusions about what it is, which is what I like. Whereas Daniken and Sitchin are so sure about, they know exactly what these ancient societies were in contact with. And
right. Just like kind of we are. We're so sure.
Well,
in a way.
I have I don't know if I'm sure. I have my suspicions about what I think these things are. But in any case, I think it's consequential that we discuss these things, because I think these things actually have a influence on our society as a whole. It influences our government, it influences our culture, it influences how we think. And we should like talk about these things. We should expose them and have like a frank discussion about exactly what's going on. But anyways, going back to Jacques Vallée, he sort of says, I can't remember exactly how he phrased it, but it's kind of like, he talks about how in every era that the phenomena sort of matches the cultural conceptions. Like there used to be these like large floating balloons.
Yeah, airships.
Yeah, airships.
The airship panic. Yeah, it wasn't really a panic, but it was a thing.
Yeah, exactly. That these. But then
that was the early 1900s, late 1800s for everyone listening.
Yeah, exactly. But it all sort of, the phenomena seems to have matched the cultural understanding. So there's like some kind of interplay.
While also slightly advancing it as well, which is because an airship, nobody... just a quick anecdote. One of the stories that I remember from the airship craze was farmers in the Midwest of America had basically Zeppelins land in their fields. They had never seen, allegedly, as far as I know, they had never seen a balloon or a Zeppelin, so they had no context for it, but they described one perfectly, which is which is crazy. Now, there are some people who claim that there's prosaic explanations, which does make sense to some degree, but it always seems to, and like I just pointed out, it always seems to just bring us a little bit more forward. Like we're seeing these things before they should exist.
Yeah.
In a way that they don't exist that we know of in the current time. So Zeppelins didn't. Oh man, I'm trying to remember now because I did research this quite a while ago, but Zeppelins didn't become really popular until like the 19-teens, and we're talking like that one airship I was just referencing that was like 18, I want to say 80 or something, like quite a bit before that tech had been really established and commercialized. So anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah,
it's always just slightly ahead.
Yeah, same goes with, when you get into the UFO craze in the 40s and 50s.
Correct.
All these Betty and Barney Hill.
Yeah, I was hoping you would pick that up.
They're all having these experiences with these advanced technologies,
right.
but these things, this is the problem, right? Because we're like, what do we mean by real? What is real? To me,
sure.
it is like matching their consciousness somehow or their current society, and it is shape shifting into something that they could conceptually understand.
Yeah.
So it's like in the modern post-Enlightenment era materialist paradigm, it presents itself more as technology, where in the ancient society, it presents itself more like magic. And so
it's very mimetic.
Yeah,
I would say it's mimetic.
It like copies almost what your expectations of what it would be.
Now, you brought up Betty and Barney Hill, who are the original, basically, abductees. Now, I don't want to take away from your point at all.
Sure.
But there is also very good reason to believe that they were being effed with by the government.
Absolutely.
With actually early helicopter technology, believe it or not.
Okay.
And so we won't get too far into this because I feel like we're just shotgunning this. Yeah. we're going balls to the wall here. But so a lot of their UFO, their abduction story comes post hypnosis. And so I personally have a problem with hypnosis. I know there's a lot of people who claim specifically hypnosis regression.
Yeah,
like
regression. So I'm totally with you here.
Yeah.
I am very skeptical of regression hypnosis.
Yeah, like you can definitely hypnonize people. It's a thing. I'm not skeptical about that. It's the regression hypnosis that is really
recalling memories that the person is like in
blocking.
Their subconscious somehow. I think. Again, memory. Again, and this is where something I dip into some of the science, like the actual hard sciences that studies have been done about how unreliable memory can be, and how when people are either in a hypnotic state or a psychoactive state,
right, that
memories can 1000% be implanted into people, and this has been like proven.
Yeah, it's proven beyond. So we know this.
I think these hypnotic regressions I'm very skeptical of them. I don't view them as reliable sources, which I agree with the Betty and Barney Hill thing.
Yeah. So there's a lot of weird stuff around that. But again, go do your own research and digging if you're interested in it. But it is funny how that is probably that's the first modern abduction.
Yeah. But again, it's not. Again, when we're going back to
it's not aliens, a new phenomenon. Yeah, that's for sure.
Very similar to what was happening.
Right.
If you think of someone like Enoch who goes up into the heavens, he's almost abducted and like goes up.
There's multiple prophets that happen to, right? Yeah, or one.
Yeah, precisely. There is this whole thing where you can see how there's a connection between the ancients and nowadays, and then. Obviously, like if you were an ancient person and you don't have our modern framework of understanding the world, you don't understand physics or chemistry the way that we do, like you're going to start worshiping that being. You're going to make that being like make idols for that being. And actually, funny thing, a little side tangent about idols is, from the best knowledge I think that we have, is that most idols isn't the object of the worship. The idol, the actual physical piece, art piece, if you will, is actually designed so that the spirit can inhabit
Correct.
that idol.
So it can be animated.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, it's a form of animism.
That's why, just on that, if you guys read the Bible at all, and when Abraham leaves his father's house, I believe he takes the idols with him.
He leaves his idols behind or something. Yeah, it does mention.
No, he took them, and it was his father like chased him for it because it was a big deal.
Okay, yeah.
That might have been in an apocryphal too. That might have been in Jasher or something. I can't remember, but
no, there was a mention about the idols with Abraham. It seemed to be very brief.
I think Sarah actually took them or something, but that was his father's, like from his father's house. And the reason his dad was pissed was because those were for the inhabitation of the gods they worshipped, and you can't just take those. But they were important enough that Sarah decided to take them with her, or something like that. Anyways, I shouldn't talk about things I can't quite remember.
Yeah. Another side note too, from the book of Joshua, it mentions that Terah, Abraham's father, was from the land of Ur, which most scholars are pretty sure that that's Uruk, the city of Uruk, the Sumerian city where Gilgamesh comes from. So Abraham probably worshipped the Sumerian gods.
Yeah, probably.
So there's like good evidence that was the cultural river which he was swimming in.
Yeah.
And he would have grown up worshiping those gods, and that would have been his like worldview, his framework was these spirits. But again, going back to the idols, the whole idea is that the spirit precedes the idol. The idol is just an encasing for the spirit to come into, right? And just like our physical bodies, the belief would be is that our physical bodies encase a spirit, which is our spirit, right? Like we're a multi-dimensional being who is encased, sort of, if you for lack of a better term, inside of this physical body. And so they do this sort of same thing for these celestial spirits, if you will, and encase them try to encase them inside of an idol. Yeah. Anyways, so again, I know it is somewhat speculative, but I can't help but wonder if these spirits or these entities were influencing how the ancients developed civilization, because the ancients talk about it so much.
Yeah, they don't shut up about it.
Yeah, exactly. They just cannot stop talking. If you read a lot of the source material, it's all like, oh, and this god gave knowledge of this, and that god gave knowledge of that. And it's like, it's nonstop. It's like in Egyptian lore, it's in Greek lore, it's in ancient Chinese
everything.
Lore. Yeah, it's like
I wish I knew more about Eastern, like Far Eastern lore. Yeah. That's been something I've been trying to get into, because, man, there's it's a gold mine for mythology for sure.
Absolutely. Anyways, so it does seem to be that they were speaking with something. Now, could those entities or consciousnesses, excuse me, have been conjured up in their head somehow, perhaps through like the use of psychedelics or something like that? I don't totally dismiss that idea. Could they have been real separate entities that the psychedelic was a gateway to communicate with that entity? That's also a possibility. Or could it just be like their own consciousness in a psychedelic state?
Well, I think we have enough modern accounts of psychedelics. I mean, there's so many YouTube channels dedicated to the entities you meet, and there are like there's standard entities you meet allegedly in the DMT realm.
Yeah, machine elves.
Yeah, machine.
It's like a meme at this point.
So that is, but if you actually like just go on YouTube and just type in entities you'll meet on DMT. There is a standard set of entities. There's a bunch of different ones. There's like and they're all a bit anthropomorphic or
anthropomorphic.
Yeah. Well, no, not just but they're all like, they all have aspects of natural things that we would have here. Like there's squid type beings. There's mammalian, like monstrous beings. There's canine beings, right?
Yeah.
But there is a very specific, and if you get into it and you go and look at that, there's lots of people who report seeing the same beings, which is weird. Now, again, without doing a proper study, like, were they primed first with those ideas?
Yeah.
Because if you're doing psychedelics, you've probably heard these stories, so you're probably like looking at what you might expect. So it's very possible that you're just priming your own psyche for this,
100%.
for this thing to just like open up and show you the exact same beings. And especially if you were accessing YouTube and you actually got to see a picture of them,
right.
or maybe you AI generated something. A picture of one of these, you typed in a prompt or whatever, then you had a visualization, and then your brain would just latch on to that. So it's hard to say, but I think as we go along in this podcast and we go further down that rabbit hole, I bet you we will find similarities, and I bet you will find them thousands of years apart and tens of thousands of miles away from one another.
Right. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. So, to be fair, it's much easier to chalk all this up to all the divine inspiration and secret knowledge up to mythology. Again, I don't want to totally be super dismissive of sort of the materialist reading of things, because again, as we mentioned in the script, game of telephone happens, then a certain narrative is set, and then there are certain points about a story that just become part of the legend and the mythos, right? And that may not have been the actual event that happened, but I have a sneaking suspicion that there was a real event tied to every single one of these mythos.
Absolutely, yeah.
All the cultural transformation that they might have went through, notwithstanding. But it doesn't just stop at the religious practices of the far ancient peoples. So now enter Plato's daemon. Thanks for listening to this episode. Stay tuned for the next one. Check out all of our links in the description, and if you become a supporting member, you can get this episode extended and ad-free. See you next time.